Well, good morning, everybody. This is Chris Dew with eOne, and I want to welcome you to our session on getting started with Popdock. I'm really excited to spend the next few moments with you, and again, hopefully, you will have a great platform to start from and building your own solutions around this. What we're going to start with before we dig right into the software is we're just going to show you a couple of things to think about as we're embracing this. First of all, if you don't know what Popdoc does today, it is a cross-application reporting tool. And what this means is that, again, we can report across data across multiple different systems, whether it's on-premise data, whether it's cloud-based data. We can report on that. And it's not just for, you maybe have heard the term BI or business intelligence. It's not just for the people that are sitting around pondering or strategizing. This is really for the people that are using data every day to do their job, right? Maybe it's those 5 things you need to do in this system today, these 10 things in this system. It's for the stuff for people that are doing things. Um, Again, the ability to access that data that you need wherever you want it. So that means it could be on a web browser, it could be inside of another application, it could be on a mobile device. We'll talk about some of those options for you. And again, just being able to access that on any device. So we're going to talk about 5 pillars today that Popdoc will provide you, and we're going to show a bunch of these things in action. With the first one is really being able to embed this application or data, I should say data from any application in whatever your preferred application is. We call them widgets, but this basically allows me to embed data. I could be in a CRM system and I could be seeing ERP data inside of my CRM system, or flip it around. Maybe I'm in an ERP system and I can see my e-commerce orders without even leaving. So it's those kinds of examples that we'll look into. Another thing is one interface for that reporting. When you start talking about how many applications it takes to run your business today, I think even internally at eOne, we're probably over 20 pieces of software. Well, nobody can even remember their passwords to log into 20 pieces of software every day. And so some of those things can be very challenging. And what we're doing is we're giving you one interface that you can bring all those things together, and you can do the same type of filtering and the same type of grouping data and those things, no matter if it's coming from a cloud or a SQL database or some other solution. Again, being able to report in a custom manner across all those applications is incredibly important, I believe, because you may have something that's sitting inside an ERP system, but I actually need to go ahead and see maybe my credit card transactions that are related to that. So that's an entirely different system, but I need to see it right there. And we can actually do that type of joining of data, no matter whether where it's coming from, but we can join those pieces of data to make something meaningful. One of the things we're talking about as well is real-time data access. So this is not something that's in a data warehouse somewhere, a data lake, that's being refreshed once a day or something like that. This is pulling live from whatever system it's coming from. And so for people that need to, need up to the second information, this is what it's going to provide you, and so that you have the information you need to do your job. And then one of my favorite areas is talking about exception reporting. So there's a lot of people that don't really like, what does that mean? Well, it can mean a number of things, right? It could be, let me know when some inventory levels are running low. And so I maybe want to have a report go out once a day that gets emailed to me that says, hey, inventory levels are low. Maybe it's when there is a certain level of a help desk ticket. Like I hope that there's no high priority ones or urgent ones, but if there are, I need to know about those exceptions, and so I want to be able to do something with it. So we'll get into that a little bit later as well. Okay, you'll see that we have a ton of applications that we can connect to. Here's just a few of them on the screen, but we actually have some connectors in there that let you connect to pretty much anything in the cloud with our web services connector, SQL databases, those kinds of things. So every day we keep getting new requests to add stuff, and we keep doing that if it makes sense to do a dedicated connector. Otherwise, we can still, like I said, with some of our other connectors, we can connect to most anything out there. Okay, so let's talk just about a few things. Scenarios. So these embeddable widgets, which I'm going to show you in just a second. How do people use this? Well, it could be maybe I'm inside of I could be inside of a CRM type system, and I need to see some data from an ERP system, or maybe I'm in a cloud-based ERP, but I still need to pull some data from an ERP system that was on premise in the past or something like that, some legacy, and I need to pull those records in and maybe see all of the historical invoices for a customer as well as the ones that are in the new cloud-based system. Those are things like that where we can embed that data without necessarily having to log into the other system. Maybe we need to pull across some information from, like I said, a shipment tracking program. So I have my ERP invoice, but because it has a tracking number, I want to see where is it at? Did it get delivered? Those kinds of things. It could be, your e-commerce orders. Maybe without having to log into their special site, you want to be able to see those inside of your CRM system or ERP system. So there's a number of other examples in here. I won't go through them all, but just to get you thinking about this. And I think once you see widget in action, you'll be very interested in this. So I'm gonna cut over to that right now, just to show you some really cool things that we can do. Okay, I'm gonna start inside of a CRM type system. And in this case, this one happens to be Salesforce that I'm gonna start inside. And I just wanna show you that we can do things like, in this case, I'm pulling in some ERP orders. This one happens to be coming from a Business Central system. And if we look at this, I'm getting just the orders for this one account. So this Taco Deli account, I'm seeing all of their orders inside of here. But let me show you a couple other cool things. I can customize this interface. So while this is not, this data is not been integrated, it's not sitting inside of, it's really not sitting inside of Salesforce, it's just a view into it. But I have all the capabilities of Popdock, and so if I want to get rid of some columns, so maybe this customer number doesn't really matter in what we're looking at, or maybe I want to add some additional columns for here. For example, I want to add maybe the location to sort by that. I'm able to add those fields or columns right there. So what it's doing right now is it's just going and grabbing all the location data for each of these invoices in a real-time manner, and now we have that. If I wanted to group by that, I can now group by location code, and so we can see, here we go, we have orders in 4 of these different places. If we expand to Austin, what I can do here is I can filter this data if I wanted to. If I wanted to add as many filters as I wanted, I could put date filters or certain criteria. It's going to work no matter where your data is coming from. These filters are going to work in the same way. But what I want to show you now is if I click on this invoice, I can actually see some additional detail. So what this is doing is going and grabbing live data from whatever system it's pointing to. So this is going back to the ERP system and saying, hey, let's go grab all of the details for that one invoice. And so we can see the quantities that were ordered on this invoice. But I want to show you something else. Because there's a package tracking number, we actually have this connector built in that will go out to FedEx and UPS and USPS and whatever, and we can actually see all the status, and I can see that, here's where it was picked up and here that it's been delivered. So there's some really cool things that you can do without ever leaving this little widget. I'll show you a couple other things here, right? And I'm actually going to flip over for now. I'm going to flip into a different CRM system. So this happens to be Microsoft's Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement. And so if I click on here, I could actually now click on a different list. So it's much the same, right? This is data that's coming from a Zendesk system now. This is a help desk type of system. And so I have the same Taco Deli account inside of here. and I can see just their tickets. I can search for them in this interface, right? So if I search for lettuce, I can see things like, oh, here we go. Looks like this lettuce may have some E. coli. And this is where things get really fun. I can actually do things like change the priority of this ticket. So I can do actions on the Zendesk data, which is a cloud-based application, and I can change this priority from, oh, it looks like I got the wrong field here. Well, how about I do this? I'll change the status of it. So if I wanted to, maybe say that this was closed, for example, I could actually close or solve this ticket. So those are some things that I can do right inside of this interface. I can also do some things and display it in a more graphical nature. So I can see that of the orders that we've done for this customer or account, looks like we're selling a lot of cheese to them. So without even having to log into an ERP system, I'm able to do stuff like this. So I just wanted to give you an example of some of those kinds of things that you can see with an embeddable widget. All right, so now when we talk about cross application reporting, I'm going to go in very briefly here. I'm going to go into Popdock and actually show you some of the main interface inside of there and show you where you can add new connectors and those kinds of things. So just to give you a couple of ideas though, we can combine data from multiple systems. We can combine it. We can join it to, if it makes sense that we need to get some additional data, we can actually compare the two systems. So maybe I want to find records that are in one and not in the other, or just the ones that are in both. I can do those kinds of compares. We can basically do like a union. If we have, like I said, maybe you have a historical based system with invoices and you want to combine that with our our current cloud orders, we can do those kinds of things, and it allows you to match the fields. But just to give you a couple of other examples, right? Maybe if you are doing some social media type of things, right? We want to pull in data from your Facebook page, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, and then maybe Instagram followers. So if it made sense for your company that you could do these kinds of things and join in all that data and find out that maybe your Facebook people aren't they're not connected with you on LinkedIn, and you could do all kinds of lists like that to find out where you may have gaps in your marketing plan. Same kind of thing with like Google Analytics, for example. We could take the website traffic because we have something built in for Google Analytics, and maybe we want to map that back to our marketing campaigns in our CRM system. Or maybe it's, again, some more marketing. It could be something like Constant Contact, MailChimp, or again, something sitting inside of D365, pull those contacts and find out which ones are missing, or those kinds of things. So let's jump in and look at that for just a bit. If we go into the main Popdock interface, here's kind of the home page that we can customize. And you see I have a number of maybe just very informational things. I have my customers that have a balance, so maybe I just want to know if there's anything I need to do there. You can see it looks like I have 42 outstanding Zendesk tickets, so maybe it's just at a glance. I'm okay with 42, but if it gets over 100, if there's 100 of them that haven't been solved, then maybe I need to take some kind of action. So there's just a few things there. But what I was talking about is the capability of adding those custom type lists. So let's go ahead and look at that. If I go into my connectors tab, and for this example, I'm just actually going to go into a Business Central connector for now. Inside of this Business Central connector, you can see we have a number of things. I won't spend a ton of time, but we have different groups that we can put our lists into. These lists, we have a number of default ones that we've optimized and given you a bunch of things, but they're all customizable, and we can add any kind of thing that's if there's additional web services or whatever that's available, we can add those lists very, very easily. But we can also add custom lists. So if we look at this example, you see I have a number of custom lists inside of here. So I have some combined sales you can see from maybe a couple different systems. I can do those kinds of things, or maybe I'm combining lines and header information from one. So I'm able to do those kinds of things. But here's how easy it is to add a custom list. You can either add those compare, like I said, where you can say, hey, give me give me all the stuff that's the same between these, or give me the stuff that's different. You know, what's not in one system. I can join it, right? If I need to, again, a very good example might be if I have an order, but I need to go pull some additional details to see if that credit card has actually been processed, or maybe it got declined. So maybe I want to pull that from like a Braintree system or Stripe or something like that. I can join that data and get, you know, that meaningful piece of information. I can do those merges like I talked about, so that we could actually basically do a union where we can get data from a historical source or multiple sources. So it's very, very easy to do any of these types of things. And again, it's not limited to just, in this case, Business Central data or ERP data. I could go grab it from you know, Shopify, like an e-commerce type system. I could go grab it from an ERP system, a CRM system, you know, marketing system. I can grab it from all those systems and join them, as long as there's some piece of information that's shared between the two. So there's a lot of power inside of here. While I'm in here though, I want to go back to connectors. So we titled this, you know, getting started with Popdock. And I think there's some key pieces to hopefully that you can take home from this, because it can be very easy to get started. We literally have given everybody access to, we call it the sample data connector. I'm going to add it right now. It's actually, if you start a trial with us, it's already in there, and can be a great way without having to worry about finding all kinds of credentials to log into systems. You can just simply hit the sample data connector, and it is now put that data inside of there. So we should see that it's actually, it's installing right now. So it's just putting a few different lists in there for me. It takes a couple seconds. And now what I can do is, if I want to access this data, I can just hit add a new tab here. And it's cleverly called sample data. And then you'll see here's all the lists that are part of that. So if I just wanted to, again, start with something simple, if I want to start with the customers, I can add that list, and it's just pulling from, again, some sample data that we have loaded on here. It's a great way to get used to the interface, to do things like, you know, right, if I want to do filters. So hey, let's add a few columns here. So if we wanted to add, you know, maybe city, state, total sales, we'll just add a couple columns like that. And now we'll have that data from this customer. But if we want, we can now do some filtering. So if we want to see only people from, let's see, what's a big one here? We got a few from Arkansas. So let's just, we'll filter and say that the state has to be Arkansas, for example. And so now we should have a list of just the customers in this Arkansas. Now we could keep on adding filters as needed, right? If we wanted to say, and you know, ones that had only a balance of, you know, over $200 or $500, we could keep adding those criteria in. But one of the things that you can do is, once you have a list in the way that you like, again, we could remove some fields, add some fields. We can actually just create a favorite here. And so I'll be real clever. I'll call it demo today. So now I have a new favorite called demo, and I can come back to this list anytime I like, which is the beauty of this, is that now it's very, very easy to come back to this list that already has my filters saved and everything like that. A thing that I think we forget to show a lot of times is we can actually export this data. So in a split second, I can export any type of data. Just a second, it's opening on my other screen here. Let me move it over. There we go. And again, in milliseconds, it gave us a nicely formatted Excel sheet that we can do lots of fun things with. Now, I'm going to do one more thing inside of here. I'm going to export that one more time, just to show you that it was very, very quick. But what I wanted to show you as well is that you can actually use Popdock to pull in some data from all kinds of lists. So this is a out in the Microsoft's app source for Office, and so you can basically pull this in and you connect to your account. So I'll just do that real quick. And as we log in, you'll see it has all the connectors that I have set up. And so again, if we wanted to go back to the sample data connector, I could pull those customers that we wanted. And if I wanted, you can see now, I can either have the default view or our favorite that we created has now been put inside of there. And so if I do this, it's now going to pull in just the data right from that favorite. Should have done that. Maybe I didn't hit the button. I thought I hit the button. Okay, maybe it was trying to put it right back in the same list. My apologies for that, but I just wanted to show you that basically any kind of data that you've made available, Popdock can also bring that inside of Excel in a real-time manner if you like. So let me hop out of that. Okay, a couple of other really cool things is that you can actually change this from a list to a chart very, very quickly. And so now, without doing anything at all, we now have a graphical representation. And if we don't like that chart type, we can do this type of chart. And if maybe the category field is phone, maybe that's not really what we want. Maybe we want it by city. Now I can see, in this case, I'm getting probably total sale, maybe total sales by the city. So here's our best thing going on is in South Olafbury. So you can change all these different graph types, and again, as you add some of these other ones, we can actually add things like a legend to it, so I know what each of these represents. So these are some pretty cool things that you can make favorites of these as well, right? So if you wanted to just have a chart that you hit refresh on, you can do that, and again, that could be on the home page or in one of those widgets that I showed you in any application. Here's a little one that people don't know about. You can actually display it more like a CSV or XML or JSON. So there's some really cool things about how you can display that data. While most people probably live in a list like this, you do have that ability to do some of those really cool things. So just to show you that, again, you can do a lot of reporting across many different applications. You can see at the top, right, this was our sample data connector, but here's one that's pulling help desk tickets from Zendesk. Here's stuff pulling from a GP system, a business central system, a CRM system. Some of these are like coming from web. A web system. One thing's called ShipStation for handling all kinds of shipping, and this one's coming like from Trello. So you can connect to all kinds of systems in there, and again, if we need to join them, we can. That's the power of it, I think. Okay, if we jump back to just a couple more slides here, we also talked about being able to do scheduled exception reporting. And so I'm going to set up a couple things here that we talk about, but we can do those automated notifications. So again, if there's every day, if I want to get a report on my inventory levels, or I want to get, here's another example, right? Maybe it's your CRM data that you may have some kind of a data quality check that you want to see if your leads coming in have a source, right? And so if they don't have a source, then you want to take those exceptions. So this is one of those exception reports, or again, I've heard a few people call it many different things, like a wall of zeros, where you hope that there's no exceptions, but if there is, we have to do some kind of action. So, and again, in that case, maybe if we don't have a lead source on our leads, then we need to do something about it. And so here's those 3 records or 5 records or 10 records that have to be fixed, and then we can either do them ourselves or assign them to whoever needs to do that. But some other examples of that could be, right, maybe somebody is over their credit limit in an ERP system, and so maybe you want to attach that with a CRM system, right? So maybe, again, while the data is an ERP. Maybe in the CRM system, you want to say, hey, let's go ahead and make a call to them and find out, what's going on. Do they need an extension or something like that? Or again, maybe help desk tickets. Maybe we need to find out anything that's marked urgent that needs to be at the foreground, and we need to find out what is going on there, and do we need to get more resources or better resources to tackle that issue. It could be, again, a few other things, just maybe orders over a certain amount that have been declined from a credit card company. So maybe I want to see those kinds of things. Or again, maybe low inventory alert. Or it could be, for really high donations, finding out what's going on there, and maybe we need to do some kind of follow-up, either thanking somebody or whatever it may be. So let me show you where you can do a couple of those things. So some of the very easy stuff, we have some of the notifications. Again, I have quite a few of them in here. So I have some of these are actually errors, and some of these could be, that we are over a credit limit or something like that. So this is in the interface and would also be in the mobile app as well. But if we want to talk about scheduling those things, we have this developer tab. And so in this tab here, we are able to set up different jobs. So as this pops up, you can see I have a couple of jobs inside of here. If we pull up one of these existing ones, we can see that this is sending from the Salesforce connector, is sending a group of users every day. So just the default view, not a favorite or anything like that. And it's being sent to this email address with this subject, and it's being run, in this case, every day at 9:20. So you have some flexibility over, when you want to send these reports out, but you can get a little email report with this information. So this is where a lot of people will set up those exceptions that they want, sent out every day. And this can be really cool way of doing this. Okay, we also talked about these widgets. So how hard is it to set up a widget? It's actually incredibly easy. If we look at this one, for example, the accounting invoices. Same kind of thing. All we need to do really is we give it a name that we want to do. We have two main types, the application and a favorite widget. And so a favorite basically just is one list, whereas an application list or application widget allows us to publish as many lists as we like. So if we wanted to have one list, and why don't I just show you an example of that real quick. Here's an example of an application widget. So this basically says, hey, select a list. And so you can see I can be pulling some ERP data, or maybe some kind of a CRM data, or some custom web application or custom SQL application. I can pull a bunch of different types of lists right from one, whereas like these other ones, this is only coming from one list, one favorite that I have in Business Central. Okay, so that's where you say the type, but then you pick your connector and your company and the group, and then either your favorite or just the default view. But this is where it really gets fun, because you can choose if you want to allow people to do things like do the filtering. There are times where you may not want to let people filter it any further, or maybe you don't want them to I don't know, export the data out to a system or even refresh it. You have control over how you want to view that data inside of the other system. And I guess it's really easy. This is the part I want you to understand. We have, it's basically an iframe, and you can use this little code generator that I could either generate the iframe, or if it's like in a NetSuite system or Salesforce or whatever, we'll generate the code just as needed, and then we'll put a certain theme on, right? So if it's Business Central, here you go. All you got to do is copy and paste this in, and it can go right inside of a browser, and there you go. You now have a widget that can be in any system, so you can expose that data in any system very, very easily. Okay, so we talked about like how can we put this in other systems. One really big thing we've shown you kind of the desktop application. We've shown you it embedded in, some other applications, whether it be like, some websites or just web-enabled applications. We have a mobile application that we're actually doing some refreshes on right now, but that will be available across both iOS and Android devices. So you'll be able to access these little favorites that you want whenever you want, right? If you just want to see, like our CEO, his favorite thing to do every day is to pull up his phone and see how many sales were, came in for the day. So that's the kind of stuff that he loves looking at. Just very simple lists that have maybe just a couple fields on, but has real-time access to that data. And I also showed you just briefly the being able to show it from Excel. So wherever you want to get that information, you certainly can. Now these widgets, again, I gave you a couple examples of what they look like in real life, but here's some that these are more of the graphical type ones that we have. We didn't show this one, but this is a really popular one, being able to just have like a total field. That's all it does is it says either how many tickets there's 42 help desk tickets, or that there's $39,000 of sales for the day. Again, here's more of that example of a list reporting. So just being able to get at the data from an entirely different system, being able to see some ERP data, or again, maybe some e-commerce data without leaving the system that you're in. So pretty easy to get started using those things. Okay, we'll talk very briefly again just about pricing. There are 4 different levels. At the core, you pay per user. So whoever's going to be using this, it's $19 a user a month. And then you'll see as we go up on the plans from standard, professional, premium, there is just a little bit of a cost on getting those extra features, plus how many ever users you have. So it's just $59 a month, or $99, or $159. And you can see the main things as you go in. We probably have most people coming in at the professional level, is that with that you get unlimited widgets. So if you want to start adding it to maybe an internal portal and a CRM system and inside of an ERP system, you can have as many widgets as you like. You can have custom lists. You can connect to any kind of API out there, even ones that we don't have a connector for today. We have a way of getting at it very easily without necessarily needing a developer to get involved. And then, if we start getting into the premium section up there, that's where you can hook into other like BI systems. If you really want to put a really pretty interface on some of this data, we get a lot of people that are they're using Popdock in tandem with things like a Power BI or a Tableau or something like that to basically use Popdock as the data source, and then they use the powerful graphing capabilities of those other things if they want to make really, really pretty reports for the executives. So there's a lot of ways that people do use this data, and it can be used in tandem with that. Okay, this is me. I'm Chris Dew, who you've been talking to. So I head up the product management team for Popdock, and it's been fun as we're seeing companies get transformed by using Popdock. We keep getting a lot of feedback on new things that they want to see inside of here, new connectors, and this is the part I really enjoy is getting to work with customers and seeing their success. And I'll just give you an example. We have one customer that they are a car wash company. And so they had started, when they started with us, they had 20 some companies that they were running inside of an ERP system. And in that ERP system, they didn't really have a way of combining the data from all of those companies into this one list that they needed in a meaningful manner. And so Popdock was able to do that very easily, and basically allow them to either combine or pick a company and switch the data as needed. But they had this one report that was critical to the way they ran their company around purchase orders. And so we were able to do some things and optimize some data access to that ERP system from Popdock. And basically they can't go a day without running that report, and they run their entire business. Since then, what we found is that they have actually added, they started with 20 some companies, they're now in the mid 30s for companies that they've added. And this Popdock keeps growing with them and giving them more and more access. So while they started with just a couple users, they started quickly finding that there were more places in their company that really needed to access data from other systems. And so they just kind of started sharing that, and all of a sudden, you know, they've been adding users all the time to just be a bit more efficient in how they go about their workday. But I guess probably the last thing I would charge you with today is that we have everything set up. I showed you very quickly how to work with the sample data inside of there. So if you just want to get familiar and see if this is for you, it can be very easy. You just go out to the popdock.com website and hit sign up for a trial, and you can create a new account out there, and I think you get 7 days. So you get 7 days to do whatever you want. You can either use the sample data that's in there, or you can start connecting to your own systems. There's no limit on how many systems you can connect to, whether it be a CRM system or ERP or Shopify or whatever. But you can connect to all those different types of systems and do whatever you need to within 7 days. So that's what I would encourage you to start with, is just go out, sign up for a trial. If you don't want to try to connect to some other system, just go work with the sample data, get used to the filtering, get used to exporting, maybe combine, even in the sample data, maybe you do some of the more advanced stuff that we didn't dig into too deeply, but maybe you join a couple of the lists together. Maybe you join like the customers to the invoices table. So you can do those kinds of things, and again, get a really good first experience with it. So I want to thank everybody for their time today. Here's my information. If you do have some follow-up questions, I will actually take some now if there are any questions out there at this time. So I'd encourage you to put it in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar. So I'll look there. But if you, again, you have all my contact information if you want to contact me at a later time. So let me just go and see if there are any questions in there right now. Okay, one question, I guess, on the pricing. Like, does it have, they're asking if it has to match the number of users that are in their system. It doesn't, right? It doesn't matter how many like CRM users or ERP users. It doesn't really matter. It's how many people you want to be using that Popdock interface. That's who you pay on the licensing for. So yep, you don't have to buy 100 of them if you have 100 CRM users. If you only have 3 people using Popdock, that's all you need. Okay, another one. Oh no, okay, another question was asking if you mentioned Shopify. Do you guys have a Shopify connector? Yep, that is one of the dedicated connectors that we do have. I can show you that. So if we go ahead and look into like adding connectors again, and you can see in this list that Shopify is in here. So if you had a website that you wanted to pull that data into, you can just click this, and literally in a matter of seconds, you would be connected to any Shopify e-commerce store. Okay, one more question here. Asking, is there a limit to the number of filters? No, again, maybe you may have some limits from maybe whatever system you've been using in the past, you know, maybe on the number you can put in here, but it's really unlimited when you look at it, right? So if I pull up a list, again, just back to this little demo list that we had, you can keep adding these filters, right? So if I just hit plus, I can just keep adding as many as I like inside of here, and you know, just change them to whatever that field is. So unlimited amount inside of here, and it's a great way to create favorites for the data that you need. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So last call for questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap up today. And again, I'll just put my contact information up one more time. If you would like to ask me at a later time or have some very specific things, I'd be happy to answer those for you. Okay, no more questions have made it in, so thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.